A family of four lived in a quiet suburb. The father, Tabo, was a man of steady hands and gentle laughter. The mother, Lorado, carried the warmth of a smile and had two children, Wazi and Thandi. One day, the winds of misfortune blew through their home. Tabo lost his job and was in debt when he stole money from his company. The laughter faded, then the lights, then the house itself. The family packed what little they had into their car, a silver sedan that became their shelter beneath the stars. They slept in parking lots and bathed in public restrooms. Lorado braided Thandi's hair each morning with trembling fingers, whispering, "We are still a family. We are still whole." One morning, with hope stitched into their hearts, Tabo left Lorado and the children at a shelter to search for work. But fate had other plans. News spread like wildfire. A car had rolled from the cliff near the old quarry. It had caught fire. Tabo did not return. Lorado emerged from the wreckage with tears running from her eyes. She did not cry. She screamed. She held her children close and whispered, "Your father loved you with every breath. We must carry him forward." Weeks passed. The insurance companies had begun to make payments. Tabo had taken out insurance from 2 service providers. Then came the letter. Life insurance. $2 million. The companies paid, no questions asked. A number that felt both heavy and hollow. Lorado gathered her children and told her family, "I will not return to the old ways. I will build something new. For them. For me." And so she vanished, not in bitterness, but in quiet resolve. No calls. No letters. Only the wind knew where she went. Some say she moved to a coastal town where the ocean sings lullabies. Others say she built a home with walls of glass and gardens that bloom year-round. After the fire and the cliff and the silence that followed, Lorado took her children far from the city's noise. They arrived in a small town nestled between hills that wore mist like shawls. The kind of place where people waved but didn't pry, where stories were kept like heirlooms, quietly, respectfully. She rented a modest cottage with peeling paint and a garden overrun by wild rosemary. The walls were thin, but the roof held. Inside, she made a home, not with riches, but with rhythm. Morning prayers, warm porridge, laughter that returned slowly, like a bird learning to sing again. She enrolled Wazi and Thandi in the local school. No one asked where they came from. No one asked why Lorado's eyes sometimes looked like they'd seen too many winters. The teachers welcomed the children with open arms and closed mouths. Lorado never spoke of the money. She dressed simply, shopped at the local market, and paid in cash. She wore the same sandals every season and drove an old hatchback that coughed before it started. She told her children, "We are not what we own. We are what we carry." At night, she wrote letters she never sent, to Tabo, to her sister, to the life she left behind. She buried them beneath the rosemary bush, believing the earth could hold her grief better than any mailbox. The townsfolk came to know her as Mama Lorado, the quiet woman with the kind smile and the strong children. They didn't know she had $2 million tucked away in a bank account under a name she no longer used. They didn't know she had once lived in a car or that her husband had died in flames. And she liked it that way. In this town, she was not a widow, not a survivor, not a woman with a past too heavy to name. She was simply a mother, and in the stillness of that new life. It was a Tuesday. The sky wore gray like an old coat, and Lorado was folding laundry while Thandi hummed in the next room. The kettle whistled. The rosemary bush swayed. Life was ordinary. Then the phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer, but she did. "Lorado," the voice said. She froze. The air thickened. "Lorado, it's me. Tabo." Silence. The kettle screamed. The wind stopped. "Tabo?" she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "I thought you died. I saw the fire. I buried you in my heart." "I know," the voice said, "but I didn't die." Her knees buckled. She sat on the floor, laundry forgotten. "Where are you?" she asked, her voice trembling between disbelief and hope. "I was attacked and woke up in hospital. They didn't know who I was. I woke up weeks ago. I've been searching." Lorado pressed her hand to her chest, as if to hold her soul in place. The car, who was in the car? She asked. It was stolen with everything inside. I told the children you were gone, she said. I built a life from your ashes. I know, Tabo said, but I'm here now. Inside, Lorado wept, not just for the man she thought she lost, but for the woman she had become in his absence. The call lingered in Lorado's ears long after the line went silent. Tabo, alive, the man she had mourned, buried in memory, now reaching to the veil of fire and time. She didn't sleep that night. She sat by the rosemary bush, the one that held her unsent letters, and listened to the wind. It carried no answers, only questions she wasn't ready to ask. The next morning, she watched her children eat breakfast. Luazi laughed at something Thandi said, milk dribbling down his chin. They were happy. Oh, she had built this life from ash and silence. How could she tell him the fire hadn't taken everything? She met Tabo at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. He wore scars like medals. His face changed, but his eyes still knew her. They sat in silence before words found them. I thought you were gone, she said. I was, he replied, but something pulled me back. You, the children. She looked away. They think you're dead. Tabo's voice cracked. Do they have to? Lorado's heart twisted. I don't know. He told her everything. The coma, the hospital, the search, the pain of waking up to a world that had moved on without him. She listened, but her soul was torn between past and present. I used the insurance, she said quietly. I built a life. I didn't tell anyone. I couldn't. Tabo nodded. I understand, but I want to see them. I want to know them again. Lorado's hands trembled. They've healed. Slowly. I don't know if reopening that wound will help. He reached across the table, not to touch, but to steady. Then let me whisper. A story you tell when they're ready. She wept, not for the man before her, but for the woman she had become without him. Strong, fierce, changed. That night, she sat with her children beneath the stars. There's something I need to tell you, she said, and the wind held its breath. Lorado gathered the children beneath the old fig tree, the one that had shaded their birthdays, and whispered lullabies in the wind. Thandi clutched her sketch pad. Luazi had a soccer ball tucked under his arm. They knew something was coming. Her eyes held that storm-soft glow. I need to tell you something, she began, her voice steady but tender. It's about your father. Thandi's pencil froze. Luazi leaned in. He's alive. Silence. Then breath. Then disbelief. I don't understand, Thandi whispered. I thought he was gone. For years. But he survived. He's been healing, searching. And now he's found us. Luazi's eyes brimmed. Where is he? He's nearby. But we're not ready to tell the world. This is our secret. For now, just us. Just family. Thandi nodded slowly. Like a story we're still writing. Lorado smiled. Exactly. She let the truth settle like dew on morning grass. Then she stood, brushing her hands on her skirt. There's more, she said. A surprise. The children leaned in. I've been offered a new job. In Ghana. It's a chance to start fresh, to grow. We'll be moving soon. Thandi's eyes widened. Ghana? Luazi grinned. Do they play football there? They do, Lorado laughed. And they dream big, just like us. She knelt between them. This next chapter, it's ours. We'll carry our secret like a seed. And maybe one day, when the time is right, we'll let it bloom. That night, they planted a small tree beside the figure. Thandi tied a red ribbon to its stem. Luazi whispered a wish into the soil. And Lorado watched, knowing that some roots grow strongest in silence. Tabo arrived in Ghana under a name that wasn't his. The documents were forged, clean enough to pass, but fragile as wings made of paper. He settled in a quiet coastal town, working odd jobs, keeping his head low. Every phone call with Lorado was brief, coded, and careful. Meanwhile, Lorado and the children waited in Johannesburg, their real documents crawling through bureaucratic channels. She sold furniture, packed memories, and whispered bedtime stories about the ocean breeze in Accra. 6 months later, the papers came through. They landed in Ghana on a humid morning, the air thick with promise. Lorado held her children's hands as they stepped into their new home, a modest flat with a mango tree at the back. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Tabo started to visit once a week, always at night, always with caution. Lorado told the children to call him Uncle T. It was safer that way. The neighbors didn't ask a lot of questions, but saw a couple from the same country meeting in a foreign country. Years passed. They had moved into an estate safe and secure, they thought. Thandi grew into a fierce young woman, her art now bold and political. She earned a scholarship to study visual anthropology at the University of Ghana. Wazi, ever curious, pursued environmental science, determined to protect a land that had given them refuge. Tabo and Lorado watched them bloom. She worked at a cultural center, curating stories of migration and memory. Her own story remained tucked in the folds of her heart, shared only in fragments, never whole. Tabo ran a small business and aged quietly. He never reclaimed his name. One evening, Lorado stood beneath the mango tree, watching the sunset bleed into the horizon. Tabo joined her, silent. "They're becoming who they're meant to be," she said. He nodded. "And you?" She smiled. "I'm still becoming." The estate was quiet that morning, the kind of quiet that hums with routine. Sprinklers ticking, birds gossiping in the trees, and curtains drawn just enough to let in the sun, but not the world. In one of the houses near the edge of the estate, Mr. Molev visited an old friend from his youth, in Ghana from Johannesburg, retired and full of stories. Mr. Kofi was the kind of man who never went anywhere without his camera. Not the sleek digital kind, but a chunky vintage one with a leather strap and a lens that clicked like a secret being kept. He had a habit of snapping everything. Sunsets, breakfast plates, strangers walking dogs, and neighbors watering plants. After the guests had left, Mr. Molev sat alone, flipping to the printed photos Mr. Kofi had left behind. Most were mundane: a child on a bicycle, a cat on a wall, a woman hanging laundry. Then he saw it, a photo taken from the upstairs window. The angle was slightly tilted, the lighting soft. In the frame, Lorado, Thandi, and the man who had driven off. The man's face was turned just enough to catch the light, just enough to be recognized. "Tabo," Mr. Molev's breath caught. He stared at the photo, then at the window, then back again. The image was grainy, but undeniable. The scar on the cheek, the posture, the eyes. He placed the photo on the table, like it was evidence in a trial. Later that evening, he made a quiet call to a friend in Johannesburg, a retired detective. He didn't say much, just that he had a photo and a suspicion that someone who was supposed to be dead might be very much alive. The wind outside picked up. Inside, the photo sat under a paperweight, silent and damning, a moment frozen in time, now thawing into consequence. The photo made its way from Mr. Thomas' desk to a retired detective in Johannesburg. The man had once investigated Thabo Makona's death. He remembered the fire, the wreckage, the closed casket. But the face in the photo stirred something old and unfinished. He ran the image through archive databases. The scar matched, the posture, even the limp. It was Thabo. Authorities in Johannesburg contacted their counterparts in Ghana. Quietly, carefully, a joint investigation began. Surveillance was placed on the estate. Phone records were traced. The pieces fell into place like bones in a forgotten grave. Meanwhile, Lorado and Thabo lived unaware. They planted herbs. They hosted quiet dinners. They spoke in whispers and kissed in doorways. The children were thriving. Thandi preparing for her final exhibition, Wazi deep in research on coastal erosion. Then came the morning. The estate was surrounded before sunrise. Black vans, armed officers, a silence, so thick it felt like the sky was holding its breath. Thabo was arrested at the gate. Lorado screamed. The children watched from the door, frozen in disbelief. At the station, Thabo sat beneath the flickering light, his silence finally cracking under the weight of evidence. The forged documents, the falsified insurance claim, the years of deception. He confessed, his voice flat, his eyes hollow. Hours later, Lorado was brought in. Her face was composed, but her eyes betrayed her. Grief, guilt, and a love that had long since turned into sacrifice. She admitted her role not out of malice, but desperation. For her children, for survival, for love. She, too, was arrested. Her involvement was peripheral, but not invisible. She had unknowingly signed off on one of the forged documents. The charges were minor, and after a brief investigation, she was released. Still, the stain lingered. The trial was swift. The media whispered behind headlines. The community watched from behind curtains. Tabo received the harshest sentence. His fraud had crossed borders, erased identities, rewritten lives. Lorado, though complicit, was seen through a different lens. Not as a criminal, but as a mother trying to hold together the shattered pieces of her family. Her sentence was lighter, but the weight she carried was heavier. During the investigation, a chilling truth emerged. The man buried under a false name, the one whose death had triggered the insurance payout, was not innocent. He had been one of the car thieves, part of the syndicate that had vanished years ago. His death had been real, but the story around it had been rewritten. As investigators peeled back the layers of deception, a disturbing revelation surfaced, one that shifted the moral compass of the entire case. The man buried under the stolen identity, whose supposed death had unlocked the insurance payout and set the fraud in motion, was not a victim of circumstance. He had been a member of the very car theft syndicate that had terrorized the region years ago before vanishing without trace. His fingerprints, long buried in cold case files, matched those found on the stripped vehicle. The body was real. The death was real. But the narrative surrounding it had been carefully reconstructed. His name replaced, his past erased, his role recast to serve a lie. What had once appeared to be a tragic loss was now understood as a calculated repurposing of a criminal's demise, twisted into a tool for survival, desperation, and betrayal. Years passed. Lorado and the children still visited their father Tabo every month. They sat in the prison garden, laughing like they used to, their joy defiant. And when they left, Lorado always said the same thing, her voice steady, her heart still beating for them. "We are still a family. We are still whole." The motive of the story reveals how desperation, when rooted in fear and scarcity, can evolve into greed and fraud. Thank you for watching Granny G's Stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories.